it was like water to my dehydrated soul. Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining. Today we will be doing another book review. You've probably heard me discuss this a number of times now when discussing the books I'm currently reading and the book that will be upcoming. And that book is Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. Before we get into the book, can you all see that my hair is blue right now? I think it's so cute. All right, back into it. So what I'm actually going to do is read a very short synopsis and review by Kirkus Reviews before I get into mine, because I just think they summarized it so well so that you all can fully understand what this book is about. Written in lyrical and proposal prose, a searing debut. So this book came out April 13th, 2021. A riveting love story that celebrates the cultural significance of Black artists and examines the way systemic racism figures into every aspect of the lives of young Black men. A photographer in his early 20s meets his friend Samuel for drinks at a pub in southeast London and finds himself instantly attracted to Samuel's girlfriend, a dancer and university student. These two unnamed figures, the book employs an unusual second-person narration addressing the photographer as you, find their lives entangled almost immediately. Both know what it means to be young and Black in London, having won scholarships to attend elite private schools where they felt constantly out of place and now attempting to navigate artistic paths. The relationship becomes increasingly intimate as a jealous Samuel breaks up with a young woman, and the unnamed two collaborate on a photography project capturing portraits of Black Londoners. Though they dance around the question of love, they find themselves spending days on end with each other, and he begins to spend more and more nights at the flat she shares with her mother, at first on the couch and eventually in her bed. As the two negotiate what it means to turn a strong and invaluable friendship into a relationship, he finds himself unable to articulate his fears and traumas to her, withdrawing in order to process memories of racial violence and police brutality, either witnessed or experienced firsthand. Black art becomes both balm and mirror for the photographer as he by turns hides from and wrestles with questions that may determine the course of his relationship. How can you find sanctuary in love when systemic forces seem determinedly against you? And how do you express vulnerability and fear when you are socialized to bottle up your emotions to present a mask of strength? That is the synopsis of Open Water by Caleb. Whew. So a little backstory. I attempted to read this book when it first came out and I was not feeling it. I just couldn't get into the rhythm of it. I tried and I put it down. And this is why I say books come back to us when it's time to. This year I picked this book up and it was like water to my dehydrated soul. It was so powerful. I got everything I think I was intended to get that I couldn't attach to the first time. So let's get into it. There's so many things I really liked and enjoyed about this book, so we'll talk about those. We'll talk about anything I disliked, and then of course at the end I will give my thoughts of whether you should read it now, read it when you have time, or read it if you want. And so one thing I really appreciated is the fact that Caleb does use Black art and Black art across the diaspora to really center and focus us in this story. He often uses music or photography or just different forms of art throughout space and time, mostly those two mechanisms, to really make us feel what's happening. So for instance, Isaiah Rashad, he talks about that music. He talks about other artists throughout as well. And it was just such a useful form of, one, making sure that folks know more about different artists around the world within the diaspora, because that's what so much of it was. But then also it made us feel more connected to our protagonists because of the fact that as humans, we all know that like music shapes us. If you put on a certain song, it'll take you instantly back to a moment in time. Or if you see certain art and it emits a feeling, you'll know, it'll make you think of someone else, or you'll remember when you first saw it. So there's one photo towards the end where he's describing it, and there's a photo of a couple dancing, and the rhythm caught in motion, and how the young woman that he's been pursuing, how she connects that to them. And it's almost like something that like it brings them back to each other. So I really thought that the use of art within the book was useful for helping to set up what we were supposed to be feeling and understanding in certain moments throughout the book. Also, dating a friend, right? It's a very tricky thing to do because it leaves you raw and vulnerable. Raw and vulnerable. It requires both of those things as well. So I think that Caleb did such a beautiful job of using language, even though sometimes it was a little confusing because he did use the you, and you're like, I don't know if he's talking about himself, you, the main character, or he's talking about her, you, like who is the you? So when you first start to read the book, for me, it took some adjusting. It was an adjustment period to become accustomed to that style of writing. But eventually, as I continued on, I no longer had the question. I always understood who he was referring to. And as the book progresses as well, he kind of removes that. So it's something to ponder as well of why initially was there no distinguishable you. And then eventually, as the story progresses, there becomes an I and there becomes a you. I just think that Caleb did such a great job of expressing intimacy. And I don't mean intimacy as in sex. I mean intimacy, that openness that is required. That the concept of open water is here, right? That openness that is required to really be closely connected to someone and to know them on a deeply personal level. Intimacy, right? He does such a good job of making you feel that. And because the buildup is so strong to making you feel that, to understanding the light touches that they had to walk, right, to tread this water, it was complicated. This is one of your best mates, significant other, and you instantly feel a connection to her, and she feels the connection too. But that's just a guilty thing of, wait, we can't actually do anything about this, can we? Should we? Right? So you get to grapple with all of that and just building that up and going from a true friendship, because at first there are those parameters and those barriers, and then the fallout of it, right? Because there's a line, I'll read a few lines from here that I love, but there was a line initially where it was like there was an inevitability about their coming together that allowed them to meander along the path. And I just thought that was so powerful. And so even though they were on separate paths and in situations, it was always clear that their paths would merge. So there was no rush. They could take their time and allow it to really bloom. And that's so dynamic. Also, the pacing here is really good. Again, like their intimacy, we are also slowly pacing it. We're going through the motions with them. And that feels like love. It feels like the process of falling in love with a person. So as they're falling in love, you're falling in love with this style of writing, wondering what will happen. Also, a thing with Caleb, I told y'all in the books that I'm anticipating this year that Caleb's newest book that's coming out, Small Worlds, is like number one on my list of books I'm waiting for, because he writes so well. And I don't even mean in the masterful, in the mastery of a language, right? That's not even what I mean when I say he writes so well. I mean that he has the ability to take emotions that you feel deep within yourself and to give words. Like, it's like speaking truth to power through the written word. And so even if we move away from romantic love here and we shift to fear, right? Because even in the synopsis, it talks about he's in a constant state of fear, of walking outside, understanding that a police officer at any moment can decide to take his body from him. Really, really puts me in the mind of Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, right? And Prince Jones, and just understanding that at any moment, this body that you deem your own can be snatched and taken away from you. And he sees it time and time again, or the threat of it, right? Where you're just walking down the street, stop and frisk, think that, right? And they have the right to do that, so that paralyzing fear, but also beyond it being paralyzing, you're living with that day in and day out. You're in a constant state of PTSD. So you're grasping, trying to find moments of joy, whether that be romantic or whether that be you finding kinship in someone who looks like you, right? Or dealing with all of that while also losing actual family members and not having that emotional connection to your father, or even your grandfather passes in another country in Ghana, and you're thinking about the time that you didn't take advantage of. And how do you process all of these emotions and maintain your sanity, all the while still trying to build and have connections with other people? It will drive you mad. And I think that Caleb does such a brilliant job of expressing the angst of it all, the desire of it all, the terror of it all, the madness of it all. And it's just so well done, because these are difficult things to explain. All of these competing emotions. And he just did it well, that you felt it and you understood the sentiments exactly. Another thing I appreciated, because even as I'm sitting here telling you all that he masterfully strung words together, he beautifully strung words together, one thing he constantly highlights in the book is that there are no words. And I feel that and felt that while reading on a deep level, because as someone who speaks multiple languages and has learned multiple languages, sometimes there are no words in any language, right? Some languages are better than others. Like, I love, there's a Naira Wahid line, and she's like, in my language, I think there are like 30 plus ways to say I love you. In yours, there's only one that explains so much. And so I think about that sometimes with Spanish, right? There's so many ways to say I love you or to express desires. But sometimes even that is not enough, right? Or even in learning Yoruba, and the way that you can show reverence, but even sometimes that is not enough, right? So even though you have all of these words, you go to school, you live life, you learn these words, but sometimes they even fail you with really expressing and explaining what you feel inside. And I loved his dedication at the end where he's talking to Ez, which I presume is the woman he's writing about, and he's like, there are no words, but I will continue trying. And I just think that that is the true emotion of it all that seeps through the entire work. One thing I talk about in my notes is like, have you ever had someone kiss you so tenderly that it frightens you and you push it away? That kind of happens here in the book, right? When him and the person he's trying to build with, he's dealing with so many things that this thing, this beautiful thing, this connection, I really think of, if this part of the story were to have a soundtrack, it would be The Sweetest Thing by Lauryn Hill. So the sweetest thing I've ever known was like a kiss on a collarbone, right? And for it to be so pure and feel so good, it can also be terrifying. You don't want to lose it, or you've never had it, you don't know. There's a number of reasons. But him, that's how I felt here when he was really pushing her away. Sometimes I just don't have the capacity right now, right? So I have to let this thing fail because I'm trying to hold on to me, myself, my sanity, the parts of me that I still can, right? And so there's just so much to unpack here that it just really was worth the read. And I had to pace myself. I didn't fly through this book. There's so much here that you have to pace yourself, really take it in, really unpack it, and sometimes just really step back and sit with it, because that's the only real way to savor it. Otherwise, I think you're shortchanging yourself on the journey of really appreciating the book. So another thing I talk about here, one of my all-time favorite movies is by Terrence Nance, documentaries. It is an oversimplification of her beauty, and it has the same feel of the book, his work, in the sense that it seems really abstract and disjointed. However, it all comes together beautifully. So like I said, he was trying to unpack so many different feelings and emotions, but it all came together in a cohesive piece that made you think and feel. And I think that's the true power of art. Also, so this is like the second or third book that I've read recently that has We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks seeped into it. And I just love Gwendolyn Brooks. I think she doesn't get the credit that she deserves. I don't care how many accolades she has that she has received, or that she received during her lifetime. I think she deserves so many more. And so We Real Cool comes up here again, because if you don't know that poem, please look it up. But it's, in essence, and I'm probably gonna mess it up, but it's a part of it is We Real Cool. It's basically talking about young guys hanging out at the pool hall and the bravado of it, but it's we real cool. We jazz June, we die soon. And unpacking that as well with all of what's happening here, of sometimes the performance of being okay. But he also unpacks that part of like we die soon and not wanting that to be the end result. And just using that to, I just think using that poem is always the right choice as far as when you want to hone in on the challenges of being young, black, and male. I think it's just profound, and I love that so many people are continuing to carry that forward. It really warms my heart. Another thing I say here is that the book and the writing itself, it's almost too beautiful and too vulnerable to hold. This is exactly what I wrote. I said, it's almost too beautiful in his vulnerability to hold, too piercing in the flash, too much of a spotlight on your own traumas and fears. And so this really is like holding a mirror up, and you're dealing with all of it in real time while you're reading this book, which is why I said you have to go slowly, you have to pace it, you have to really unpack it and sit with it, so as to not overwhelm yourself. And finally, my last thought was that it is brilliant in the attempt to describe love, pain, joy, vulnerability, fractures, all of it, the black human experience. In essence, I love this book. I think if I was to say anything negative about it, it really would be, none of it is negative, but just the things that I've discussed, that initially it was hard to determine who was being referenced in using you. Also that it can be very emotionally overwhelming sometimes. But that's not a negative. That's the power of art. That's the power of the written word. That's the power of this book. I think that's what good art is supposed to do. Make you grapple with things, make you question, make you reflect, right? And think about the ways in which this may apply to yourself and what can you learn from it. And so I don't have any real complaints about this book. Y'all know I have a thing about endings, and I wasn't mad at the ending. There was no real resolution. It was kind of one that you can leave and you can interpret it how you will. But I was satisfied reading this book for sure. It was so beautifully written. Like that, I cannot understate that. The attempt even to unpack all of it, all that we go through, and trying to exist and figure out who and how we want to be in this world. Just kudos from me, absolutely. All right, I do want to share a couple of excerpts from the book just so you all can get an understanding of the beauty of his writing. And they'll be short, but here we go. One question that comes up often throughout the book is, under what conditions does unconditional love become no more? I just thought that was great. And here's one where he's really trying to unpack an emotion. You are scared. You have been fearful of this spillage. You have been worried of being torn. You have been worried that you would not repair, would not emerge intact. You lost your God, so you cannot even pray in any way. Prayer is just confessing one's desire, and it's not that you don't know what you want, it's that you don't know what to do about it. In isolation, the hum of the melody raises the hairs on the arm, raises something within you. Have you ever been afraid of what lies within you, what you're capable of? In your kitchen, you wonder what your tears are for, the loss of him or the loss of yourself. At some point, you must breathe. You're not a prophet, but you should trust yourself more often. To give desire a voice is to give it a body through which to breathe and live. It is to admit and submit to something which is on the outer limits of your understanding. It's summer now, and you're craving a simpler existence. You want to read, you want to write, you want to meet strangers for dinner and not refuse another drink at another bar. You want to dance. You want to find yourself in a basement, neck loose, bobbing your head as a group of musicians play, not because they should, but because they must. It's summer now, and you're looking forward to worrying less. You're looking forward to longer nights and shorter days. You're looking forward to gathering in back gardens and watching meat sputter on an open barbecue. You're looking forward to laughing so hard your chest hurts and you feel lightheaded. You're looking forward to the safety and pleasure. You're looking forward to forgetting, albeit briefly, the existential dread which plagues you, which tightens your chest, which pains your left side. You're looking forward to forgetting that, leaving the house, you might not return intact. You're looking forward to freedom, even if it is short, even if it might not last. You're looking forward. And I don't want to read too many. I have a bunch highlighted. So much good here. So much goodies here. So if I had to rank it of read now, read when you have time, or read it if you want, this is absolutely your read now. Like, move everything else off your TBR. You can stop reading what you're currently reading and you can read it now. That is my recommendation for this book. Just so well done. So well done. Those are my thoughts on Open Water by Caleb. Yeah, I'm grateful that it found me when it did, and I hope that you all read it. Have you read it? Please let me know down below. What were your thoughts? I just want to know. I want to hear other people discuss it. I want to hear other people read it and hear your thoughts. So definitely do that and let me know below your thoughts on it. If you've read it, and if you haven't read it, when you do, circle back to this video and let me know your thoughts. So that is it for me. The book I'm currently reading is Ethic, the first book in the Ethic series, which follows Moth to a Flame, which I recently reviewed, by Ashley Antoinette. That's probably the next book review that you all will receive from me. I am MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. Please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the best day of your life on purpose. Peace, odabo, adios, ciao.